What we have here is the Fosi Audio P3 preamplifier. It's a preamplifier with tubes, or a headphone amplifier with tubes if you like. I'm going to tell you all you need to know about the P3 with audio demonstrations. Here it is as it came to me. As you can see, the box is rather battered and there's no shrink wrap. I don't think it was damaged in the post, and the items inside, as you will see, look pristine. So I guess that it's a pre-loved box. This is a review sample, so it isn't out of the ordinary in my experience. The P3 you buy will be picture perfect. So, feeling like a home audio expert, I venture inside. There's a stain on my thumbnail from one of the beauty products I use. Link in the description. Inside we have a power supply. Funny how I've had 3 items lately with an almost identical power supply. Must be a good business for whoever makes them. Delving deeper, we have the P3 nicely wrapped. Where are the tubes? I see only sockets. And we have some RCA phono connectors for input and output, and some other stuff that I'll come on to. Front panel controls for off Bluetooth RCA, volume treble bass, and seeing as this can be used as a headphone amplifier, a headphone socket. Why would I prefer this on a 1/4-inch jack? Oh well, I'll manage. Instructions, I'll need these later, and the specifications. Aha! An antenna, or an aerial I might call it. This must be for something. And the tubes, valves, vacuum tubes, thermionic tubes. It's a long time since I last opened up one of these boxes, probably for my Fender Vibrolux, which was the last of my 3 1970s Fender amps to go. The money went to better things. I still do have a Fender Champion, but more on that maybe in a future video. Got to handle these carefully. I feel as though I'm handling car headlight bulbs, which, as you may know, you mustn't touch, because the sweat on your fingertips, no matter how unsweaty you are, risks shortening the life of the bulb. This should be okay though, as far as I know. Damn, there's a speck of dust on my worktop. I was trying to be so clean. Anyway, I'll screw in the Bluetooth antenna. Gave the game away there. I've done this before and there's a trick to getting the antenna to point upwards, but you know that. I'll insert the tubes, got to be careful. I'm sure some tube enthusiasts in the comments will tell me I'm doing it wrong. If I am, then I'll be happy to be educated. Another speck of dust. I'll turn up the sound for a bit of ASMR. The background noise is my Mac Mini Pro, so that might be useful information if you are considering getting one. My key light has a fan too, but I only run it at 40% and I don't think the fan ever comes on. I've never heard it. Anyway, I think I'll plug it in. Looks good, but do the tubes glow? Yes, they do. Actually, there are LEDs in there. LEDs, I presume, but the tubes do glow a bit themselves. If the tubes are going to be on show, then there has to be a bit of a glow, doesn't there? Wouldn't filament bulbs be more appropriate? I don't know. I'll have a quick play with the front panel, but more on this in a mo. Okay, that's it for the unboxing. I tried to make it useful and not so much of a ritual as I often see it on YouTube. Let me know in the comments how I did. Let's take a tour around the Fosi Audio P3. On the front panel we have, obviously, a volume control. We wouldn't get far without that. But we also have tone controls, treble and bass. I'm going to demonstrate them later, but let me say for now that I found them potentially useful. The frequencies, slopes and amount of available adjustment are good. Now, there's an on-off switch. Of course, an on-off switch. But the 2 on positions select for Bluetooth or RCA input. Switch to Bluetooth, my iPhone connected instantly with no problems. If only it could always be that way between my Apple computer and my Apple trackpad. Now let's look at the top panel. Aha, tubes. Yes, we know this already. Some potential users may wish that the tubes were internal. Some will like to see tube power on display. Audiophiles will be thinking about rolling, as they call it, rolling the tubes for that perfect, highly resolving sound. It is true, different tubes can sound different. In an ideal world, the designer would design out the characteristics of individual active devices. But in the real world, different tubes can make a difference. I probably wouldn't myself, but with a tube microphone, it's a tempting prospect. Now, the back, where all the work goes on. We have RCA phono inputs and RCA phono outputs. There's a mini jack aux output too. Now, you may possibly criticise the fact that the P3 has only one set of inputs. The P3 is what the P3 is, so we'll recognise that and move on. The headphone output, RCA outputs and aux output are all controlled by the front panel controls, and all of the outputs are tubified. I tested this with a spectrograph, and I see harmonics all round. I'll show you some harmonics later in an audio demonstration. Now, the mini jack aux output. It's the same, tubified, and you'll be pleased to know that both the RCA and aux outputs are controlled by the volume control. I'm trying to imagine someone listening on headphones with their subwoofer connected to the RCA or to the aux. I'll bet that some highly dedicated audiophiles do this. Comments? OK, that's the all-round view, unless you need me to talk about the rubber feet on the bottom. 4. Now, you need to know what the P3 sounds like. Is it the real deal tube experience? I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to show you in an audio demonstration. I'm going to listen in detail on my headphones. In fact, I'll base all of my further comments on the headphone output, because for me, well, I just find this the most interesting aspect of the P3. It's a tube headphone amplifier, as well as a general-purpose preamp. It sounds fine. As you know if you watch my channel, I'm a frequency response, noise, distortion kind of guy. These all have to be good beyond the limits of my hearing. There are other problems in audio of potentially elephant-in-the-room proportions, and of course I'm attentive to those too, but I only generally comment if I can hear them. Anyway, for the big three, frequency response is subjectively fine. Bear in mind that at my age, anything over 10 kHz is wasted on me. Noise is inaudible even full up. Distortion? Well, come on, this is what you bought a tube amp for, isn't it? I'll demonstrate shortly. So, all this checks out. What else is important? Well, does it go loud enough in my headphones? I mentioned when I reviewed the Fosi Audio P3 power amplifier that it had enough gain but with only a small margin to spare. I could get my monster B&Ws loud enough and a little louder than that, but I couldn't get my monsters to roar. Not lack of power, notice, just not enough gain. Does the P3 go loud enough? Bloody hell it does. OK, it depends what you're feeding it. I played it my latest hit single from Spotify on my iPhone, via Bluetooth of course. 9 o'clock on the volume control was a perfectly satisfying level. 12 o'clock was as loud as I could stand it, even momentarily. Above that, who knows? An auditory danger zone, I'd say. Now, at as loud as I could stand, the sound was subjectively clean, and I'm satisfied that the P3 has plenty of power in reserve above and beyond what you'd need, which is the way things should be. I'm using 32 ohm headphones, by the way. If the impedance of your headphones is higher, your volume will be less, and you'll need to advance the control more. As a point of interest, I plugged in a 33 ohm dummy load into the headphone output and measured the output voltage on my oscilloscope, a maximum of 1.5 volts RMS before clipping, which gives me about 70 milliwatts per channel into 33 ohms, which is close to the published specification. Now, here's the thing. What we don't often see in specifications or hear about in reviews is the output impedance of an amplifier. The output impedance of a power amplifier should be low, very low, less than an ohm, less than 1/10 of an ohm. This is significant for damping factor when driving loudspeakers, which of course would need a whole video in itself, but perhaps more significantly for frequency response. Long explanation or TLDR? OK, TLDR. Battery resistance, equal resistance, ground. At the point between the resistors, the voltage is half the battery voltage. I got there quickly, didn't I? Let's now say amplifier's output resistance, variable resistance according to frequency of a real headphone driver, ground. If I say the amplifier's output impedance is 32 ohms and the headphone driver is 32 ohms, the voltage across the driver is halved. If the driver's impedance varies with frequency, then the voltage across the driver will also vary with frequency. Oops, we now have a frequency response problem. So, ideally, as I said earlier, the output impedance of a power amplifier or headphone amplifier should be very low, which, through maths, diminishes the problem into near non-existence. Now, and I know you're eager for this, you want to know the output impedance of the headphone output of the Fosi Audio P3. And I'm going to tell you in the next instalment. No, I'll tell you now. It's as close to zero as I could detect. My measurement method is not the most sophisticated. Sine wave input, dummy load, oscilloscope, maths. But it's better knowledge than no knowledge at all. I measured the output voltage with no load, then with a 33 ohm dummy load, no visible difference, which means the output impedance is satisfyingly low. This is exactly what I was hoping to find out. This is the one thing that I couldn't find in the published specifications, and I would regard as an issue, and it turns out to be no issue at all. Now, you want to hear what the Fosi Audio P3 sounds like. Well, you can't do that without actually having one, but I can give you a flavour. What I've done is pipe the background music I used for the unboxing, one of my doodles, into the Fosi, and I've recorded the output from the headphone socket. So there's no load to speak of, so this isn't exactly the same as real life. But there's no way to get there other than having the P3 and listening on headphones. Some knowledge is better than no knowledge, though. So here it is. I'll play you the original. Now I'll play the output from the Fosi. Did you hear any difference? I'll leave that up to you to decide, but I have a hint coming up in a moment. Sticking to the music for now, I'll alternate between the original and the Fosi. So now you know roughly what the Fosi Audio P3 sounds like. It sounds clean to me and not overly tubified. In fact, I'd guess that a lot of people would like more of a tube sound, but hey. Okay, I've something for you to look at as well as hear. I've taken a sine wave of my favourite frequency, 220 Hz, and piped it into the Fosi. And again, I've recorded the output from the headphone socket. And I've used a spectrograph plugin so we can see what's happening. What we can see here are the 220 Hz input sine wave and harmonics and noise. Does this look scary to you? Well, the noise is down at minus 100 dB compared to full scale. Only the eagle-eared will hear it, and then it's probably just their imagination. The harmonics are down at minus 70, which is, in the immortal words of Elvis Presley, way on down. Just though at a level where they make a contribution. And of course, this is the point, the tube sound. Not too much, not too little, just where you can relax into it. That's enough science. I'm going to finish off with a quick demonstration of the tone controls. Here we go. So there we have it, the Fosi Audio P3. If you need tubes in your system, or a tube headphone amplifier, or just fancy dipping your toe into the wacky world of tubes, it's well worth your consideration. Oh, and as I've disclaimed in the description, Fosi Audio sent me this unit, but other than that, there's no payment involved, and I'm free to say what I like. And I've said it. See you soon.